Every so often, a game comes along that, while you play it, it's nice, calm, and relaxing. Think something like Wonder Stop, Animal Crossing, and Astro Near. After a long, hard day, you can log into these games, take a deep breath, and decompress for a bit, as the game's calming soundtrack and relaxing environment help set you at ease. These games lower the heart rate, let you loosen up, and give you a little bit of a mental massage, allowing you to decompress to your heart's content. But today, we're talking about Doom the Dark Ages, and it's nothing like that. Doom the Dark Ages was developed by id Software, published by Bethesda Softworks, and was released on May 15th, 2025 for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series consoles, and Windows PCs. I played this game on PC through PC Game Pass, so all footage you are seeing is from that platform recorded using OBS. I also planned on playing this on my Lenovo Legion Go, but I ran into some issues to say the least. Really, just one big one. In order to play this game on my Lenovo Legion Go, I needed to update my graphics drivers, which typically no big deal, except the driver update needed is only available on the ROG Ally. What the fuck? How this came to be, I do not know, and quite frankly, I don't care. It was possible for me to get the drivers I needed through a process that was a little above my pay grade, and I also read online it is common to see reduced performance in other games on my Lenovo afterwards, and I did not want to take that risk. So I was not able to play this on my Lenovo Legion Go, for reasons I think are very stupid. But, anyway, in Doom the Dark Ages, you play as the tried and true Doom Slayer. You are a weapon of sorts for the Makers, who are allied with Night Sentinels in a war against Hell. Hell, led by Prince Azrak, I think I'm pronouncing that right, is searching for the Heart of Argent, as it contains power that would finally give Hell the power to overcome its enemies. And you guessed it, in that also classic Doom storyline, as the Doom Slayer, it is your job to stop them. Now, Doom the Dark Ages is the next game in the modern Doom series that kicked off with Doom 2016. I definitely enjoyed Doom 2016, as it was, as the modern Doom games are coming to be, a very fast-paced first-person boomer shooter. I actually made a video on this, link in description. But personally, where I think the series peaked is with 2016's follow-up, Doom Eternal. What I loved about Doom Eternal is, as fast-paced as 2016 was, Eternal cranked it up not to 11, but to like 21. You were constantly dashing around the combat areas, using some minor parkour mechanics, and switching weapons to whatever you need to get the job done. I would say Doom Eternal is one of my favorite single-player games I've ever played, and now we arrive at Doom the Dark Ages. The modern Doom series has its own identity and set of expectations you would want out of a modern Doom game, but it has made it clear that within these guidelines, they are very much willing to experiment. id was describing Dark Ages as a hold-your-ground type of game. I believe Hugo Martin, the game director at id, when comparing Eternal and Dark Ages, said in Doom Eternal, you felt like a fighter jet. In Doom the Dark Ages, you'll be an iron tank. In Eternal, you are fast, nimble, and a variety of weapons at your disposal. In Dark Ages, you are slow, tough, with a big old cannon ready to blast away anything in your path. As I said, I absolutely loved the fast-paced, breakneck speed of Eternal. Absolutely loved it. Oh my god. And Dark Ages, by all accounts, is still a very fast-paced game. But compared to Eternal, it can feel almost snail-paced in comparison. And I think this is best shown in the time it takes to swap weapons. Look at this footage of Doom Eternal. Look at how fast the weapon switching is. Borderline instant. Now look at Dark Ages. It is like maybe 2 seconds. I don't know, I'm bad with estimating this type of thing, but it is no question significantly longer. so long in fact that it definitely cost me some health more than a few times, but pacing is not the only change that was made to make Dark Ages different. The biggest change comes in the form of the shield. In Eternal, you got a dash ability to traverse, but you can obviously use it to avoid attacks and dodge stuff as well. In Dark Ages, there are no dashes, but you still have defense. This defense comes in the form of a shield, and I personally found the shield to be absurdly powerful, as it comes with a handful of abilities, upgrades, and is both a defensive and offensive weapon. You use the shield to straight up block attacks, as well as use it to parry certain attacks and projectiles. And when you parry those projectiles, it shoots the projectile back at the sender to deal some damage to them. And eventually you gain the ability to also get additional offensive attacks when parrying projectiles. And I just want to say that the parrying sound is potentially one of the most satisfying sounds in all of gaming. Every single parry was like music to my ears as the loud ting of the shield hit my eardrums. But as the shield is obviously an important defensive ability, it was just as useful, if not more useful to me as an offensive ability, thanks to the ability of a shield bash and a shield throw. Especially after upgrades, I found the shield to be like ridiculously, I'm not gonna say OP because it's a single player game, but like probably the most vital tool in my arsenal. I quickly realized just how much I was going to use this thing, and quickly dumped all my upgrade resources into it every chance I had. I would throw the shield to cut up lower level fodder enemies as it just one-shots them. So I quickly got an upgrade that extended the cutting range of the shield when thrown. You can also throw it into bigger enemies to stun them, opening them up for attacks. But I was just constantly throwing this thing around. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if in my playthrough of the story, the shield spent more times out of my hands than in it when in combat situations. I threw the shield so damn much, Captain America would blush. But all in all, I think the shield was a fun addition to the game, and definitely was a unique and worthwhile alternative to dashing. I played Eternal before 2016, and 2016 had no abilities like dashing or the shield to help you defend yourself. And because of that, I felt 2016 was definitely missing something in that category when I played it. So although Dark Ages takes a different turn on defense, it definitely feels like it fits in the game. I also think the shield adds to the look of the Slayer, who in my opinion has never looked cooler. And quite frankly, it's not even close. And as much as I love Eternal, I do think that this is where the character design is at its weakest. I found the short sleeve design of the Slayer suit to be an interesting design choice. I understand it is probably trying to portray strength in their design, and what better way to do that than to show off some absurdly ripped biceps? But to me, it just looks a little weird. And in 2016, the Slayer looks just kind of like a generic space soldier to me. And albeit, he doesn't look bad, but does not look distinct to me and doesn't really look like someone who is ready to demolish hell. But Dark Ages Slayer looks amazing and is the first time I look at the Slayer and think, this dude looks badass. The short sleeves make a return, which is definitely a choice, but the suit itself has shoulder pads that cover up the upper bicep, and his gloves go all the way up to his forearm, so only like half the ripped bicep is really visible. So again, not the first choice I would have made, but it is less intrusive than in Eternal. And shoulder pads with the spikes, the chest piece with the ribbed accents, and easily the best addition in my mind, that cape. I like the cape so much, it's weird for me to see the Slayer without it. Really, my only complaint with the look of the Doomslayer is his helmet, and that is because I wish it was completely opaque, and you couldn't see his eyes through the visor. I understand that seeing the Slayer's eyes is a key part of the story for a bit in Dark Ages, but I just think I would like the design a little more if I couldn't see his eyes. The Doomslayer is like a myth of legend, and is so immensely powerful that it's hard to believe. And when I see his face or his eyes, it reminds me that at the end of the day, he is just a human, even if his attributes say otherwise with how fast and strong he is. I want to take some time as well to discuss the weapons of this game, as they come with a plethora of positives and negatives. Positives is that there are some really cool weapons here. The skull-chewing weapons that use shredded skulls for ammo, the chain shot that just launches out a retractable wrecking ball, and a few more as well, which, albeit slow, the mechanics of doing so is quite nice. As expected, you get a weapon wheel that you can pull up and switch to any gun you want, but you can also hit a button and quickly switch between the last two weapons used. But in addition to that, you can also hit another button to swap between the variations of that weapon that use the same ammo type. For example, you can switch between the normal shotgun and the super shotgun, then hit LB and take out spike ammo weapons and switch between the machine gun or the quote-unquote sniper. But I really like this system because you essentially have 4 weapons in your hot swap available at all times, if the hot swap was working as intended. I really only used like 2 guns for my entire playthrough for the most part. One that I never used was the machine gun-esque weapon, but somehow it kept ending up in my hot swap rotation. So when I went to change my weapons, I would often pull out a gun I didn't want to use and basically never wanted to use. I found it very frustrating, especially when I was mid-fight, expecting to pull out my shotgun or chain shot, and I pull that thing out. So yes, the super shotgun and the chain shot were pretty much the only 2 guns I used while playing Doom the Dark Ages. That's because there's no real incentive to switch weapons. The combat of this game heavily encourages close quarters combat. The shield bash is also a dash to your targeted enemy, so you can get up in someone's face quite quickly, with like kind of a crazy range for a shield bash. Not to mention that there are several enemies that take a bit of punishment before they go down, and the game in the loading screen hints tells you to get up close and personal with these enemies as much as you can so you can parry their attacks as much as possible. Even with the plasma shield enemies, where you traditionally blast them with a plasma gun to overload their shield, I no longer had to do that because early on I bought an upgrade for my shield throw that would hit the plasma shield dudes, kill them, and then the shield would go ricocheting around, taking out more dudes like a lightning bolt. So I never used plasma weapons, and to be honest, the only reason I really used the chain shot was because I got an upgrade for it where if I parried an attack, it would instantly get my next shot to a full charge shot. So it was my go-to weapon when fighting bigger and tougher enemies when I'm parrying left and right. But honestly, if it wasn't for that upgrade, I probably would have used virtually just a super shotgun once I acquired it. Even more so after I got an upgrade that basically gave me unlimited ammo through my melee weapon. Whereas in Eternal, many enemies had to be taken down with specific weaponry, incentivizing you to switch, but not Dark Ages. And I wish they just kind of did something like that to encourage me to use every weapon at my disposal. But what Dark Ages makes you do is take control of 2 new things, a giant mech and your pet dragon. And these sections were not the greatest. I definitely take more of an issue with the mech sections than the dragon. The dragon sections were a little more tolerable because they were usually done in conjunction with standard Doom gameplay. Like I would get on the dragon, shoot some stuff out, and then land and get my boots on the ground, and then likely repeat that process a few times. So every time I was landing, I was getting like, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes of standard Doom gameplay. So I was rarely ever on the dragon for more than a couple minutes at a time, which is a good thing because it's kind of dumb. The combat on the dragon boils down to you sitting directly in front of what your target is and dodging at its attacks. That's really it. Very, very basic and boring, especially for a game where you are always moving at 1,000,000 miles per hour. It was strange to partake in these very slow and largely stationary combat encounters. But the mech sections were even more boring, honestly. In the mech, you pretty much only use melee attacks and dodge enemies' melee attacks. You do get the occasional gun and the occasional ranged enemy, but the mech combat sections, I swear to God, Helen Keller could do these things. They are just that basic and boring. The only saving grace to either of these sections is that they are mercifully short. The mech sections especially only last like maybe 10 minutes apiece. So they don't last long enough to cause any real issues, but they definitely feel half-baked to say the least. And one thing that is not half-baked, but low-key should be, is the story of this game. Allow me to explain. Dark Ages goes all in on the story aspect. I mean, we went over the story earlier in the video, so y'all get the gist. But it's just kind of like, I totally understand wanting a good story to go along with your single-player game. That is most of the draw for a single-player game in my mind. And nothing draws me into a single-player experience more than a good story. And I respect id for trying it here, but to be quite honest, when it comes to Doom, a story is very much not needed in my opinion. I am playing Doom for the gameplay and the gameplay alone, because I genuinely believe these 3 modern Doom games have some of the best core gameplay loops in modern times. So the story of just hell is invading, Doomslayer needs to stop it, is really all the story I need, because otherwise it is just distracting me from what I come to these games for. Some people may want more story with their Doom experience, and I totally respect and understand that. But for me, they are kind of over-engineering it in my mind. Think of the story of Doom as a bridge, and it is trying to design a big fancy suspension bridge, when really just like a normal concrete or steel bridge, no bells and whistles would do just fine. And it seems it did the complete opposite approach when it comes to glory kills, aka the very gnarly finishing moves you can do to enemies. Instead of short animated sequences when finishing off larger enemies, it has replaced it with just like a standard finishing move, usually involving your melee weapon of choice. I definitely enjoyed the glory kills for the most part, as they really added like to the quote-unquote metalness, I guess, of the game. And what is Doom if not metal? And they sort of broke up the pacing a little bit, but not that much, especially in Eternal, where I had an ability that speeds them up. They are still in Dark Ages to some capacity, so you can still trigger some of them if you go from the right angle, as well as when you kill important enemies to upgrade your health, armor, or ammo. But it is usually just you giving them a whack with your melee weapon, shield, or fist, or kick, or whatever, and then they just kind of go flying. Not the biggest deal in my mind, but again, the glory kills have kind of become a crucial part of modern Doom's identity, so I thought the removal of them was kind of a strange decision, if I'm being honest. And lastly, before we start wrapping this up, I want to talk about the soundtrack. Now, the Dark Ages definitely has a serviceable soundtrack. By no means would I say it is bad. But with that being said, it is definitely not up to par with what we have become accustomed with from Mick Gordon. And that is because Mick didn't do the soundtrack for this game. The soundtrack for Dark Ages is done by Finishing Move Inc., which is a video game music production studio. And like I said, it's fine, but Mick is just kind of one of the best to ever do it, at least based on the games I have played that contain his music. And I gave the music a chance. I made sure I heard it. I cranked the music volume louder than the rest of the sounds in the game. And it works, it fits, but there's nothing like iconic, I guess. With Mick's soundtracks, I can listen to songs from the games he worked on and match the songs to what is happening in the game because they are that unique and add that much to the game. With Dark Ages, the soundtrack, it's good, but you could play any song you want from it, and I would not be able to tell you what is happening in the game and when that song is playing. And I hate to count this as like a negative against Dark Ages, but with the modern Doom series, when you go from banger to it's alright, it's hard not to count that against it. So I know what you're thinking. Milkman, Cam, you just spent a while ranting about mostly negative things about Doom the Dark Ages, yet I could have sworn when I clicked on this video, you said you really liked it in the title. So what gives, bruh? Well, allow me to explain myself. Yes, I did just rant and mostly tear this game down, but that is just how good the core gameplay loop is to me. Even with all these faults with the game, I still had an absolute shit ton of fun playing it. There's nothing like ripping and tearing demons apart as someone who is basically a superhuman. This is still a modern Doom game. It is still a very fast metal boomer shooter. It definitely took some swings on the formula this time around, and some were home runs for sure, like the shield, but some were also big fat stinky misses, like the mech sections. But it is very clear to me that id knows what they are doing. They know how to make a good video game, or at the very least, a good boomer shooter. Although at the end of the day, in my opinion, this is probably the least best of the modern Dooms, it is still a wickedly fun game. I'm sure the next iteration of Doom, if they choose to make one, will once more probably put another spin on the formula. But I wholeheartedly believe that they can pull off pretty much anything they put their mind to. They have given me no reason to not trust them, and I eagerly await my chance to rip and tear once more, because Doom the Dark Ages, for all its faults, is a hell of a time and a ton of fun. Thanks for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel for all your food and gaming needs, and don't forget to tell me what you think in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.